Thank you so much for the Way Klingler Sabbatical Award. I am an astroparticle physicist, which means I combine astronomy with particle physics. Most of you are familiar with astronomy. Since the beginning of time, we've been looking at the stars in awe and wondering what is out there. These days, we use very complicated telescopes, and we've devised new techniques to look into the sky in different wavelengths of light or different energies, which reveals more than we can see with just our eyes. This is important because when we devise these techniques in astronomy, we can also use them for more practical purposes. Imagine if we didn't have X-ray imaging and you broke your hand. Cover your eyes. The light is gone. You just can't see. 1 inch of matter, like your hand, is enough to stop the light. Similarly, at least 20% of our universe is invisible to us if we use only particles of light. Fortunately, light particles are just one type of particle in the family of cosmic rays. We use all of these types of cosmic rays together to get a better understanding of these catastrophic events in space. This is called multi-messenger astronomy. Between Earth and space is what we know as the atmosphere. And when cosmic ray particles hit the atmosphere, they run into air particles, which then creates more particles, which then causes a huge cascade of interactions, which we call a cosmic ray air shower. And so it takes a lot of work to look at what's left from the pileup and figure out what was our initial instigator, our original particle. Fortunately, there's different techniques we can use to take various snapshots in time of these showers, and that helps us figure out the type, the energy, and the origin of the original particle that caused this mess. So we got together with 350 of our scientific colleagues and built giant detectors at the South Pole, which had the space and the dark sky and the deep, deep ice we needed for this. The detectors we built 10 years ago are running well and give us 2 snapshots. We still need a third to get all the information we really, really want. So therefore, I'm now in charge of a new project. So in my lab and several labs around the world, we're working together on a new set of telescopes called ICE-ACT. Here's my Marquette postdoc upgrading the 2 prototype telescopes just before COVID in January 2020. We've now been running successfully for 4 years. Therefore, we have permission to upgrade. This coming year, I will be traveling to various labs around the world to learn new techniques and also to ensure that everything is on track and working and ready for deployment. But then we're going to start building 2 of the upgrades at Marquette. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for funding this work. I appreciate it very much, and so does my family.
My project examines a dark period in the history of the Chicago Police Department, in the hopes that it can teach us something more general about why violent human rights violations persist in wealthy democracies, like the United States. Over a 20-year period beginning in the early 1970s, a network of Chicago police detectives tortured scores of criminal suspects in order to gain confessions that could be used to convict them at trial. Virtually all of the victims were black men, and men who would be convicted of crimes they didn't commit, including some who would be sentenced to death. In more recent years, the city of Chicago has apologized for the abuses and enacted a range of measures meant to bring justice to some of the survivors and their families. My project aims to answer the question of why it took so long for the system of police oversight and accountability in Chicago to detect and halt this pattern of abuse. I examined the full range of institutions that were in a position to oversee the police: courts, elected officials, federal law enforcement, the media, and civil society, and investigate why they all failed for nearly 2 decades to stem the abuse. Ultimately, the findings from this study will help inform the design of policies and institutions meant to prevent the mistreatment of people in police custody, and more broadly, persistent patterns of violent human rights violations in democracies. I am honored and grateful to have been awarded a sabbatical fellowship to support research for this project. The fellowship will be hugely beneficial by allowing me to devote the time necessary to collecting data, including conducting interviews with a wide range of folks: lawyers, journalists, prosecutors, government officials, and activists, who have all played first-hand roles in this story. Thank you so much to the Sabbatical Review Committee and the Provost for supporting my work.